to get started on time. Thank you. So good afternoon and welcome to the final day's presidential forum associated with our governing board selection process for the next leader of Pasadena City College. My name is Dean Colley, and I will be your moderator today. Our firm, PPL Incorporated, has assisted your search and selection process over the last 6 months. So our candidate this afternoon is Dr. Erika Endrijonas, a finalist selected by both our college's search committee and governing board. We thank our candidate, as well as both groups, for their thoughtful and diligent commitment to these important processes. As you entered the room this afternoon, you should have had access to a one-page document addressing both a brief summary of Dr. Endrijonas' background, as well as, on the reverse side, a forum feedback form. At the conclusion of today's forum, please use this feedback form to identify your perceptions of Dr. Endrijonas' strengths, any concerns, and your overall opinion regarding her serving as our next superintendent president. We will have representatives at the exit doors who will collect those from you. These forms will be compiled for each of the finalist candidates and reviewed by members of our governing board as they engage in our deliberations regarding which finalist candidate will be our next superintendent president. The format for today's 50-minute forum will be the following. We will begin by Dr. Endrijonas providing responses to 2 introductory questions, which I will ask. This should take about 10 minutes. We will then engage in a 35-minute question and answer dialogue. Our dialogue will be based on questions from you, which should be written legibly on 4x6 cards that should have been made available to you as you came in. Please raise your hand if you did not receive one of those 4x6 cards. Please also note that the questions that you put on those cards must be relevant to the qualifications and characteristics that we seek for the next person in this position. We will end with a 5-minute period when Dr. Endrijonas will provide a closing statement. So let us begin with our introductory questions. Given the qualifications and characteristics we seek in our next superintendent president, as well as institutional strengths and challenges we face, would you please briefly describe your background and how that suggests propensity for success in this critical leadership position? And, second part to the question, after your first 6 months in the position, what criteria would you use to evaluate your effectiveness as our new Chief Executive Officer?
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it, and I love the students in the front row. This is awesome. So I want to begin by answering the first part of the question by saying that for me, student success, my day, my experience in the community college system is very much about student success. It's the beginning of it, it's the middle of it, and it's the end of it. And everything I've done up until this point has been to actually get me to this position of leading Pasadena City College. And, I wrote a brief bio. You never know how brief that bio should be, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background because I think what you'll find is that I bring to the table experience in a lot of important ways and a lot of areas at the college that will help me be the leader that Pasadena City College needs. So the first one is that I have 20 years of teaching experience as an adjunct faculty member, most of it. And as you saw in my bio, I have a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD in history. And so I've taught history, humanities, gender studies. My dissertation was a cultural history of cookbooks from 1945 to 1960, and I wrote that before the Food Network existed, so it was kind of an interesting time. But you'll see that I use a lot of food analogies as I work day to day. But I bring that up because I have the instructional side. I was a faculty member. I began, actually, one of my first professional jobs as an advisor. I did what I called cradle-to-grave advising. I recruited students, I advised them, I did their financial aid, I did their career counseling, and then I graduated them. So I have the student services side of the house. I understand what happens in student services. In terms of working as a dean, I've been a dean, an administrator at, dean at 3 different colleges, and in all of those colleges, I engaged in program development. I worked in Oglethorpe University in Atlanta, where I implemented an accelerated degree program, and it was great, it was fun, and any of you out there who are deans know that that's sometimes one of the best things you do is you work with faculty to get a program out there. Well, I've done that, so I understand. I also spent 9 years at Santa Barbara City College as the career technical dean. And there, I oversaw 28 programs spread out over 3 divisions: business, technologies, health and human services, as well as the Children's Center, the culinary school, and I wrote all the state and federal grants. So I have that background. And after that, I was the executive vice president at Oxnard College in the Ventura District, where I was the CIO, the chief instructional officer, the CSSO, the chief student services officer, and the ALO, the accreditation liaison officer. So a few things for that college. So I have that background. And now I've been the president of Los Angeles Valley College for a little over 4 years. And in that time, I have turned that college. When I got there, it was $5 million in debt to the district. Since I've been there, we've ended every year in the black, and the district forgave $4 million of debt. The college was on accreditation mourning for the 2nd year. College is now fully accredited, and its last comprehensive visit, 100% compliant with the standards. And when I got there, the morale was pretty bad. And I think if you went and hung out on my campus, you'd see the morale is pretty good now. People are happy, and I think it's because we all work together well. I've done a lot of community engagement. I'm on 3 boards in the community: Valley Industry and Commerce Association, the Valley Economic Alliance, and the Village Family Services. And I have also done statewide leadership in terms of the CCCAOE, Association of Occupational Educators Board, the Chief Instructional Officers Board. I was the president of the Chief Student Services Board for a year, and actually I was on that board for 3 years. And I'm currently on the CCC2A, the Athletic Association Board, and I'm the co-chair of the National LGBTQ Presidents in Higher Education. So why am I bringing all of that up? I'm bringing it up because I understand pretty much everything that happens at a college, and what I value as a leader is not that I sit in my office and direct people what to do, what they should be doing, but that I'm a partner and that we move forward together. And one of the reasons is because you know out there, and I hope I communicate it, that I know what it is you do every day. And by the way, when I was at CSUN, I put myself through CSUN, and I was a classified staff member there. So I know what it is to be a classified staff member as well. And, you know, the way that we move forward as an institution is to partner together. And so I hope you understand that that's why I think I would be ideal to be here at Pasadena, and it would be great to be at a single college district again. Yay. So the second, because 9 years at Santa Barbara was awesome. Okay, so the second part of the question is, how would I evaluate how well it's going, down the line? So I think the first thing I would do is, one of our big tasks in the next 6 months is, according to the Chancellor's Office, we need to ensure that our strategic goals are aligned with the Vision for Success goals. So that would be number one, is making sure that we meet that by the end of May, because we are required to do that. And the good news for Pasadena City College is a lot of your strategic plan that you're towards the tail end of really aligns with the Vision for Success goals, but this is a great time to be embarking on your update of the Educational Master Plan, which I know is also happening. So I think I would judge myself by, have we done that? I think I would judge myself, have I been perceived as being part of the team? What's the general feel on the campus? In terms of what partnerships have I established with our local K-12 districts? I know trying to get more in-district students here is really important. So what sorts of partnerships have I established with the local K-12s? How much work have I done out in the business community? Is San Gabriel Valley economic development? I would have hopefully created a partnership there, or at least be going regularly to their meetings. I would hope that I was also part of the Pasadena Bioscience Collaborative. I know that that's very important to this entire area, so have I done that? Have I reached out to each of the constituent groups, gone on a listening tour, gotten a sense of what's happening on the campus? Do you feel like your ethical summary or your summary of ethical statement, are you following through on that? Does every constituency group feel like what you all committed to and what you're hoping for in an environment at Pasadena City College is actually happening? And more importantly, if you don't think it's happening, what is it we can do to go forward? What is it we can do to make it happen? So I would judge myself by that. I also would be interested in, I would hopefully have met with all of the presidents of advisory committees, looking at how do we serve African American students and the community, how do we serve Latino students and the community, how do we serve Asian Pacific Islander and the community, how do we do all of that? And the only way we can do that is to connect with the students, connect with the community, and make sure that whatever it is they need, they feel like they can articulate, and we have an opportunity to say how we think we could meet those needs. I think what also would be important is, have I completed a board orientation and retreat? So I understand what is it that the board members are hoping for from me, from the superintendent president, and at that opportunity, I would have hopefully gotten a sense of what the community wants, the college community wants from me, so I can communicate that to the board, because my relationship is a two-way street, basically. So hopefully that would have happened. And I would have begun to look at our budget and see how it is connected to the student-centered funding formula, because that's also required. And I would have looked at our progress on guided pathways. You all are way ahead of you're way ahead of a lot of institutions out there, already having your 6 career communities, and you have PCC completes, you have an exit strategy. So I would want to have already looked at those kinds of things. And in my spare time, anyway, I think that's probably enough. Yeah, probably.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So to begin our 35-minute question and answer dialogue, please raise your hand if you have a 4x6 card and pass it to the end of the row. Our forum facilitators will collect those cards and review them to assure that the questions are appropriate for this position. I will then group the cards, as you might have seen me already doing. I will then group the cards for similar content so that we don't ask repetitive questions. We will make every effort to get to the topic of each card submitted within our 35-minute period. However, as was the case at noon yesterday and noon the day before, we ran out of time before we ran out of cards. So if that happens again today, I apologize in advance for that. So we already received some cards, so let's get started.
Okie dokie.
Okay, here we go. So this is actually on two cards, but they're related. And they both have to do with shared governance.
Okay.
And so the first card says, what is your vision of shared governance? And then part of the second card says, what is your stance on shared governance and the role of management in that?
In shared governance?
Yes.
Okay. So my stance on shared governance is I wouldn't be working in the California Community College system if I didn't believe in shared governance. You know, I'm a big fan of the saying, you got to dance with the one that brung ya. And so the way that this system works is about shared governance. And so I think, and one of the reasons I value it is because it makes sure that everybody at a campus has a voice in the process, has a voice when it comes to an issue. But the other reason I value it is because it gives you a roadmap. You know, it's not a mystery about who has purview over something. It's pretty clear when you have a very well-defined shared governance system, which I think you all do just based on what I reviewed on the website. And I know it was an issue that came up during accreditation, and you've done a lot of really great work. And I think it's important to understand what each constituency's role is, and to look to the system for clarity, or to whatever the participatory governance theory, how you put everything together, look to that to make sure that we understand who does what. And if there is a problem, make sure that you have a consultation process to bring that forward to deal with the problem. I work at an institution right now where I have 6 bargaining units. And so not all of them want to have monthly consultations. I have monthly consultations with 4 out of 6 of those. But a lot of our meetings, I had one yesterday, I have one tomorrow. A lot of those meetings are really about, well, this is what we've heard. You know, most of them begin, the first item on that agenda every month is rumor control. And I value that because, you know, unless somebody tells me what people think is happening or what people say they think is happening, I don't know about it. And sometimes they're right on the money. Sometimes the rumor is true, and it's just a case of let's figure out why that got out there. Sometimes it's so false that it's like, okay, let's take a step back and figure out how could we possibly have gotten there. But it's really valuable. In terms of management, I'm assuming because there's a management association, maybe that's the point of the question. I think it's important for management to have a seat at that table in terms of shared governance. And, you know, as I've mentioned, I was at Santa Barbara City College for 9 years, and we did meet and confer as a management group. We had a monthly meeting with the president as a management group, and it was really important. Now, are those AB 1725 things? No, they are not. AB 1725 is pretty clear. The collective bargaining unit is the collective bargaining agreement is pretty clear. But for managers to feel as though they too have an avenue, a way to articulate what their concerns are, I think it's important. But again, AB 1725 is abundantly clear, and hopefully that's answered it. So it's a good thing.
So the next question is, what is your leadership philosophy? How will you inspire others to realize your vision for PCC?
So my leadership philosophy is that I pretty much assume people are doing their jobs unless evidence presents itself otherwise. I am not a micromanager. And I know some people who are micromanagers say that they're not micromanagers, but they really are. I'm really not, seriously. No, if I had to put a label on it, I'd say my leadership style is authentic, because what you see today is pretty much what you get. And I'm very much about being a president who is approachable. And I apologize to the committee members who are in the room because I think I gave this story during my first interview, but when I first got to LA Valley College, my then assistant kept shutting my door. She just kept shutting my door, and I'd walk over and I'd open the door, and then I'd go back and I was doing something and I noticed she'd close the door again. And so I finally came out, I said, "Why do you keep closing my door?" And she said, "Well, to protect you." I said, "To protect me from who?" And she said, "You know, people coming by and interrupting you." I said, "Well, I'm the president of the college. It's kind of my job." And, and I say to people when they come to my office, and oftentimes it's, "Oh, I'm so sorry for interrupting you. I won't take your time." And I always say to them, "You don't need to apologize. You are my work. I'm here because you're here." And I think that's really important. I think it's important for presidents to show that they're human beings and that it's not about positional power at all. I don't think, if you ask people at LA Valley College, and one of my faculty members is here, so maybe he can attest to it, I don't think anybody's ever heard me say, "Because I'm the president." That would never happen. I do office hours for staff, I do office hours for faculty, I do office hours for students, and I have an open door policy because I need to be approachable. And yes, I have a doctor in front of my name, but believe me, plenty of people just call me Erika, and that's great. And the last thing I'll say is that part of being human and part of being approachable is that every day at LA Valley College, and if I'm lucky enough to be here as well, the first thing I do in the morning is I send an email with birthday wishes to any staff or faculty who has a birthday. And the first time one of the staff got it at LA Valley College, he sent me an email. He says, "Oh my gosh, I've worked here 25 years and no president has ever wished me a happy birthday." And I said, "Oh, great, okay." Well, a couple of days later, I was maybe on the campus a month. A couple of days later, I had a question, so I went by his office. And, I went into the doorway, I said, "Hey," and he practically fell out of his chair. He said, "Oh my God." I said, "What?" He said, "I've worked here 25 years and no president has ever come to my office," which shocked me because his office in the old administration building was next to the president's office. Who knew? But I guess that's my leadership philosophy. And it goes back to my earlier answer too. We're all in this together. Our number one goal is student success, and the way that happens is for me to be in partnership with all of you.
Thank you. The second part of that question was, how will you inspire others to realize your vision for PCC? Did you want to spend a minute on that before we move on?
Oh, sure. Okay. So I think the way that I inspire people is by understanding, as I mentioned before, what it is you do. So I understand, as an academic advisor, I remember what it was like, the big rush, it's open enrollment. You've seen 20 students, and the next student says to you, "So," and they ask you the same question, and you want to tear your hair out, but you don't. Because you know why? It's really important that you answer the student's question regardless of how tired you are. I understand what that is. And I think by me talking with faculty, talking with staff, talking with students, managers, getting an idea of what your ideas are, how do we put those in play? If we can't put them in play, what can we do? I think along the way that helps inspire people because it's funny, people say to presidents, "Well, you must come with your big vision." Like, yeah, you have a vision, but if you don't have people who want to work with you on that vision, your vision is meaningless. And so it really starts at the ground level, and it starts with you being a human being first.
Thank you. Many departments are understaffed, yet student enrollment grows. How would you handle the lack of funding for staff?
Very carefully. So when you apply for these positions, you do a lot of research. And so in my research, it was very clear that you have a resource allocation model that's tied to your program, that's tied to your program review. And so I think one of my first things would be to, first of all, find out what is the staffing level. I'd want to understand if this department has 2 assistants, or this department has 5 instructional aides, but this department doesn't. My first question, and this is the historian in me, it would be, why is that? How did we get to this point? How did we get to this staffing level? And I certainly faced that when I was at both of my last positions, because both colleges were in financial straits when I got there. And I will tell you from my experience, it's easier to have positions go away than when a big bunch of money comes, and then it's like, oh, there's money, oh, we need all these positions, how do we prioritize those? So I think it would be important to evaluate what is the level of staffing, what has it been historically, and more importantly, or as importantly, how is this tied to our educational master plan, to guided pathways, to our push towards student success? Because that has to drive all of our decision making. But it's a tough one.
Thank you. What is the most difficult decision you've ever had to make as a president of LA Valley College, and how did it turn out?
Okay, so you may have seen in the papers a couple of years ago that LA Valley College was the victim of a ransomware attack. And we had 71 out of 124 of our servers shut down by this attack. And we were on a time clock. We discovered after a couple of days of this attack that we only had about 5 days left to meet the ransom demand, which was $28,000 in Bitcoin. I don't know about all of you, but my purse does not have a Bitcoin in it. So that was a problem. And this happened over the lockdown of the system started on Christmas. And we discovered the problem actually because I was trying to send my IT director her birthday email. I couldn't get a hold of her, so I texted her, and I was in Vermont, which is where I spend Christmas, and she was in Boston, actually, and she said, well, I'll get to work on it. Well, within 2 days, we figured out that it was actually a ransomware attack, that there was this ransom demand, and we were being advised by various agencies and by some cyber experts, mostly that if you don't pay the ransom demand, you're not getting your stuff back. There's no way to unencrypt what they've done. It's pretty sophisticated. And but there were some folks in our district who were not necessarily in favor of it, and I really pushed for it. And what I said on this conference call on January 1st was, we need to pay that ransom. And I was advised, yeah, but there's no guarantee. I said, you're right, there's no guarantee. You are absolutely right. I said, but you know what? If we don't pay that ransom, how am I going to look at the faculty? How am I going to look at the staff and say, you just lost your work product for 15 years? What are we going to do when classes start in 2 days and we don't have a website? We don't have admissions. We don't have financial aid. What are we going to do for our students? The law enforcement officials who were advising us said 95% of the time, when you pay the ransom, they make good on it. I liked those odds. And so in this very tense conversation, somebody in our district said, yeah, but the Board of Trustees isn't meeting before you need to make this decision, so this is a huge personal risk for you. I said, well, the last time I checked, I have the ability to sign off on an invoice up to $75,000. This is $28,000. And if it doesn't work, and if the board ultimately doesn't support it, I will figure it out, but I have to do everything I can. And the end of the story is, there is honor among thieves. We paid what we did was we found the 28 Bitcoins, which is really hard. At first, we thought we only had 3 Bitcoins. The cyber folks we were working with said, we only have 3 Bitcoins. So I was on Colorado Boulevard in the stands waiting for the Rose Parade to start. And I get a call from my vice president saying, hey, we have 3 Bitcoins. Which servers do you want to save? And I said, you know, Mike, I said, I'm not going to make Sophie's Choice on Colorado Boulevard. I said, I'm going to let the parade go by, and then I'll give you a call. But in the meantime, a day later, we had the Bitcoins, and so that was a happy ending. It was a very difficult decision. It was a huge risk. But again, I did not know how I was going to face the faculty, staff, and students and say I hadn't tried everything in my power to get their things back.
Thank you. The next question is this: how will you keep your thumb on the pulse of student issues? And then a second part of this, do you believe in meeting with students on a regular basis?
Absolutely. I have monthly office hours right now. I absolutely believe in it. And sometimes, depending on when those office hours fall, I actually go out on their club day on a Wednesday. And, you know, they're in the quad of our student union. And I set up a table, and they have a big sign that says office hours with the president. And so I am absolutely happy to talk to students. I also have talked to plenty of student reporters. One year we had a recording student or a broadcast student who did a podcast, and she did a monthly podcast with me where I would go into the studio and she would ask me questions, just ask the president. So I think that's really important. I think meeting with the ASU, the Associated Student Union, is really important. And what's really important, too, in my mind, is it's not enough to schedule events to celebrate things. You know, we could say, okay, it's African American History Month, it's Women's History Month, it's, you know, whatever it is. It's not enough as a president to say, I really want to have those events scheduled. As a president, you need to go to them. The students need to see you there. And that's really important. So I think the key is making sure you have a regular time to meet with them. If there's an issue, agreeing to meet with them. And I've gone and spoken to various student groups on campus. And, you know, if they want me, I'm there. And I think that's how you do it.
Thank you. Please explain the value of a foundation and how it relates to the community.
Okay, so the value of a foundation, in my mind, is that the foundation is there to support the college. It's there to support the students through scholarships, through whatever kinds of monetary ways we can support students, but it's also there to support the college itself and the faculty and staff. And I think engage the outside community and help them understand that if they donate to our foundation, if they provide funding, that in turn what they get are college graduates who then go into the community, they get jobs, they, you know, rent, they buy, they do all kinds of things. So I think that's one thing. When I arrived at LA Valley College, the foundation there was very, very focused on student scholarships, and they do a great job with student scholarships. But they didn't really do anything for the college. You know, a lot of the college folks knew that there was a foundation, and some of them had accounts with the foundation, but the foundation never really sponsored anything. And so I was successful in getting the foundation to pay for the annual classified staff appreciation picnic. And that meant a lot to the staff because they felt like, oh, wow, the foundation supports us. But I think it is a wonderful opportunity to have a part of the college that can go out there and talk to people in the community who have the ability to positively impact the college, and that can be a scholarship. One thing I'd like to see at Santa Barbara City College, we had a wonderful program where faculty could get stipends to have students help them on a project. And so it was a stipend for the faculty because they were working on a project, but it was a stipend for the student who was helping the faculty with that project. And a lot of times it was the first opportunity a student had had to do one-on-one work with a faculty member to help them with a research project. That was all funded through scholarship funds and foundation funds. So I think there are so many ways that a foundation can impact positively a college. Absolutely.
Thank you. I have 3 cards that are very similar because they approach equity and inclusion as issues and concepts. So I'll ask them in a series, and so perhaps you can then respond. Not rapid fire. I'll ask them in a series, and perhaps you can respond holistically to those as an issue. So as a Latina asking this question, we need someone with the knowledge of our community. We have not heard much about equity, so that's one question.
Okay.
The second question is, PCC serves the San Gabriel Valley with one of the biggest Asian American niches. Please tell us your specific experience with Asian American communities. And then the third question is, PCC has approximately 51% Latino students and about 50% white faculty. What would you do to improve the diversity among PCC student and faculty populations?
That's a tiny question there for me to answer. So I'm going to give you my philosophy first about diversity and inclusion. And my favorite quote, which comes from a diversity and inclusion expert, is that diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance, okay? So my philosophy is that it's my job, it's our job to make sure that every student, faculty, and staff member feels like they belong at Pasadena City College. And that comes in many forms. In many ways, it does come from diversifying the faculty. And so I want to talk about it in 3 ways. One way is with those large celebrations. In large ways, you need to have celebrations. You need to have Latino Heritage Month. You need to have African American History Month, Women's History Month, Asian Pacific, Armenian genocide celebration, all of that. You need to have that because all of the parts of your community need to feel like they belong there. And as I said already, as a president, you need to go to those things. At the second level, you need to, as a president, it's about hiring. And if you don't have diverse pools, then what you need to do is take a step back and ask yourself, where did we look? Did we just put an ad in the Chronicle of Higher Education? Or are there some trade magazines? Should we be putting ads in diverse issues in higher education? You know, there are ways to diversify the faculty, but you have to have the leadership to do it. And so I would say that. Implicit bias training. I think it's very important to make sure that our professional development offerings include implicit bias training, because there are a lot of ways that it's possible for people to unintentionally make the very student populations you're talking about feel unwelcome. And so it's incumbent on all of us to do implicit bias training, to know what our biases are, not to go and say, I have no biases. That's not true. We all have biases. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to make sure that it doesn't impact what you do? And then in small ways, it's about what you do at the individual level. And For me, it's about having the courage of conviction to speak your truth. And that means when somebody says to me, well, who's going to man the tables? I say, unless you know the only people sitting at the tables are male, I think they're going to be staffed. And you have to be willing to say it to anybody. So as recently as 2 weeks ago at the CCLC conference, I went up to our chancellor, our statewide chancellor, Eli Oakley, because he had, in the previous speech, he had talked about the importance of diversity among CEOs and diversity among trustees. So he had asked, various ethnic groups, various racial groups, if you're a president or a trustee, please stand up. So he did that. He also did that with first generation. If you were a first generation student and you're a CEO or a trustee, please stand up. So I went up to him and I said, you neglected to ask the female CEOs and the female trustees to stand up. I said, because over 50% of the students in the California community colleges are women. So women CEOs are really important. And he also didn't ask any of the LGBTQ presidents to stand up. So I offer all of that to say that I believe in diversity with a little d, not a big D, because we have to be open to how do we serve every student. And in terms of Latino students, in terms of Asian Pacific Islander students, I had a larger population of Asian Pacific Islander students when I was at Oxnard College. But when I was at Oxnard College, 77% of the students there were Hispanic. And so what did we do? We worked on programs to try to address what their needs were, what their desires were, how could we help. And a lot of times what was important was we invited their families in, because a lot of it was, if we can help your family understand the demands of your school, the demands of your job, the demands of whatever, or why you need to not come home on Tuesday night, because what you need to do is go to Mi Comunidad and get your tutoring, or whatever it is, that's what we need to do.
Thank you. What are your thoughts around the influence and value of business and industry, in particular private sector employers, on PCC? And then further, can you give an example regarding your engagement with this group?
Okay, so as you know, I was the career technical dean at Santa Barbara, and I'm a firm believer, and I like to remind people that 50% of the mission of the California Community College is workforce development. And so I had a lot of experience working with CTE folks and did advisory committee meetings for every single one of those 28 programs once a year, as is required by Title V. But since I've been at LA Valley College, I am on the board of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association. I'm on the board of the Valley Economic Alliance, and I chair the education committee for Valley Industry and Commerce Association. But in addition to that, since I've been at Valley, we have worked with the City of Los Angeles, and we have become a City of Los Angeles strategy sector provider of training, and we do training in manufacturing. We train bus operators. We've saved LA Metro, over $10 million over the last 12 years training bus operators. But we also have a large biotech training bridge program that we work with private companies. So we do workforce training that's both public sector and private sector, and we just found out that we will have a WorkSource center on our campus, which is important. It's community career development. So right there on the campus, we have workforce training, but we also have the services, the wraparound services for employers. What I like to do, or our approach to it, and I think LA Valley has done a really good job of this, is reverse engineer training. And what that means is going out to a local employer, so in the case of biotech, going out to biotech and saying, what is it you need your workers to know how to do? Okay, That's how we design the program. And bridge programs that get folks from unemployed after 4 or 6 weeks into an entry-level job. We do little graduations. I go to as many of those graduations as I can. And oftentimes, at those graduations are local employers who are waiting to pick up our manufacturing students, who are waiting to get our biotech folks. So I think there's a huge need for a connection between Pasadena City College and the local business and industry. I know that there are already folks in place here that work in that area, but I do believe that part of my job as a president of a large institution like this is to help make those connections, to follow through, and to try to get to a point where when a local employer, whether public or private, has a training need, the first thing they do is they pick up the phone and they call Pasadena City College, and that's where we want to be.
Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left and several cards. So the next couple of cards have to do with particular student groups, and so I'll ask it together. As you know, TRIO programs are federally funded programs supporting historically underrepresented students. Mm-hmm. So what is your experience working with and supporting TRIO programs? And then the second student group is what role do you see student athletes in helping Pasadena City College with the new funding formula?
Okay, I'll start with the athletes first. Because I am on the board of the CCC2A, the statewide board. I'm the CEO who represents the Western State Conference. I am a huge proponent of athletes. And I will tell you that when I first got to LA Valley College and we were $5 million in debt, for a whole year, all I heard, both from inside the college and outside the college, was just get rid of athletics. If you get rid of athletics, we'll save a lot of money and we won't have any problems. Well, that's crazy, especially since athletics have a place at our colleges, and at LA Valley College, if I were to get rid of athletics, guess who would suffer? Some of our most underrepresented students are who populate our athletics program. So the answer isn't let's get rid of it to save money, especially because don't forget, all those athletes, because of all the athletic rules, have to be full-time students. They have to make satisfactory academic progress. So why would you want to harm underrepresented students who are encouraged and required to be full-time, who are required to make progress, and they count towards your success, and you're helping a really vulnerable population. So I am all in when it comes to helping athletes, because sometimes it's a ticket to a D1 or a D2 or a D3 school, but sometimes it's just another couple of years of those students getting that thrill of competition and the opportunity to hone their skills, to be part of a team. Because what we talk about a lot too is student engagement and getting students to be connected to the campus. What better way to do that than to have them participate on a team? So I think that's definitely, don't even go there. And then TRIO, we have a couple of TRIO grants at LA Valley College, and we, in fact, we're always trying to make sure we have adequate space for them, because those are the students, if we can show them a pathway, and I think the pathway here, as well as guided pathways and fully implementing pathways, I think what we do is we look at those students and we say, okay, there are needs to show the path through the process, because really, as much as we want to streamline admissions, financial aid, and all those things, at the end of the day, it's still a process that people have to go through. So I think TRIO students are a really great opportunity because they are high need, because but they also represent some of our greatest opportunity for success, that if we can be successful with them, I think we can take that success model and scale it up as part of guided pathways. So I'm all in.
Thank you. And probably our last question, and it's a career pathways question.
Okay.
How long are you planning to stay at PCC?
Well, let's see. How long am I planning to stay? How long will you have me? Yeah. So I'm not a job hopper. You know, I was at Santa Barbara City College for 9 years. I was at Oxnard College for 5 years. I've been at Valley College for 4.5 years. And everything I've done in those 3 positions was to get me to this point, to be a superintendent president. So my goal would be to plant myself and you know, one of the vision for success metrics that they want us to do is, one of the goals is to by 2027 to completely close the equity gap for all students across California. I'm not a statistician. I don't know if that's technically possible, but it would be really awesome to be here and see if I can make that happen with all of you, working with all of you to make that happen. And along the way, maybe pick up an Aspen Prize or 2.
Thank you. And that ends our question and answer dialogue period. And thank you also, audience, for your participation. And I apologize that I've not had the time to get to all of these cards. So we now have about 5 minutes for a closing statement.
Okay. You know, I'm appearing again at 5:30, so if you didn't get your question answered, you could always come back, and hopefully it won't be raining. So, you know, some people have said to me, so why do you want to go to Pasadena City College? So I'm going to answer that question with a rhetorical question, and why wouldn't I want to go to Pasadena City College? You all are amazing. You know, you're going to be honored next Tuesday by the Campaign for College Opportunity because you're so far ahead as an ADT leader in terms of completion. You're in your 2nd year of being nominated a top 10 finalist for the Aspen Prize. And there's so much going on here. And I have, as I just said, worked my last 18 years dedicated to student success in the California community college system, and I can't imagine a better place to have the opportunity to push the envelope. And as I also said, I have teaching experience, advising, admissions administration, VP, all of these things. And I'm so ready to come here and bring all of that experience here. You know, Santa Barbara, 9 years in a single college district, then 5 years in a 3 college district. What feels like dog years of 4.5 years in a 9 college district. I really would love to be at a single college district, and I'd love to be, you know, I know what it's like to be an institution that serves the entire Pasadena area. You know, Santa Barbara used to call itself a jewel in the crown of Santa Barbara, and I would imagine that PCC is pretty much that, a jewel in the crown for the Pasadena area community college district. There's a lot of folks out there, there's a lot of communities that need to be served, and I really think I'm the right person at the right time to do that. And I think my leadership style and my experience are what this college needs to go forward from a path that you're already on a great path. And my commitment to you is, and I use this analogy when I met with the board, in this role as a superintendent president, I'm kind of like the cream filling in an Oreo cookie, right? Because when you eat an Oreo cookie, you don't just bite into it, right? You twist it open, and sometimes the cream comes out on this cookie. Well, that's the cookie of my work with the board. And sometimes the cream comes out on this cookie, and that's my work with all of you, with the community. And sometimes my job is to be that cookie with the board, so I understand what is it they're looking for, what is it they're hoping for, is there something that they would like to see at the college that maybe they're not seeing or they have concerns about. So it's my job to take that to all of you, so put that cookie, right? But sometimes my job is that other cookie. It's what's important to all of you. What is it that you want the board to understand, that you want the board to see? It's my job. I'm the cream filling. I'm what breaks up the density of the chocolate cookies to make sure that it all happens. And I think, hopefully, I've demonstrated through this process and through 50 lovely minutes of answering questions that I'm the right person. So I hope I win.
Thank you, Dr. Endrijonas. And thank you, audience, for your participation again today. Once again, our facilitators will be at the exits to collect your cards. And as indicated in our earlier announcements, we'll have a second forum today for Dr. Endrijonas at 5:30 in this room with the same format.